Welcome all to the Social Media Algorithms and Rangatahi Experiences webinar. Our opening karakia, Mauri ora kia mātou, arehina mātou ia mātou mahi, ki mihia he huarahi mo te kaupapa o te mātou rangahangarau, āwhina atu, āwhina mai, te pou e here nei ia mātou. Hui e, tai ki e. Ka pai. Again, no mai haramai ki tēnei huiata. Welcome to another TENS Wednesday webinar. We're thrilled to have Kate Whitaker with us, an experienced and passionate educator who brings over a decade of classroom experience in teaching and facilitation from across Aotearoa. As a senior advisor at the Classification Office, Kate specialises in education and outreach, working to support whānau and teachers in having open and honest kōrero about potentially harmful media. Kate is deeply committed to enhancing the lives of New Zealanders by creating practical, accessible resources that empower communities to navigate today's media landscape with confidence. We're excited to hear her insights today. Welcome, Kate Whitaker.
Kia ora. Thank you so much for having me. I'll just share my slides. So thank you so much, Ruth, for a very kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here talking with you about social media algorithms and rangatahi experiences. I just want to clarify that this is not a webinar about algorithms and how they work, but instead about what rangatahi have told us about what they understand about algorithms and their experiences of algorithms online and the impacts this has on them, and also what they need from us as adults, both as parents and whānau, but also as educators as well. So let's begin. A little bit more about me. As Ruth said, I have a decade experience in the classroom, both at intermediate and high school. From there, I moved into sexual violence prevention, delivering healthy relationship and consent education across Te Whanganui-a-Tara, Wellington. And it was there that I discovered the work from the Classification Office. They released their first part of their 3-part youth-focused research project into young people in pornography. And I used that research to create workshops for rangatahi, but also for parents and whānau on how to have conversations with their rangatahi about pornography and online content in a way that rangatahi tell us will work for them. Just a little over 5 years ago, I started working with the Classification Office in my role as Senior Advisor, Education and Outreach. And my job is to engage with the public in person via webinars like this, but also in creating resources for parents and whānau and educators on how to talk with rangatahi about these online topics. As you can see from that picture in the bottom, the blue Kahuri e te kōrero, changing the conversation about pornography, that was a professional learning development resource that we created in conjunction with the Ministry of Education to help teachers have conversations about pornography within a relationship sexuality education in the classroom. So just an overview of the webinar. We'll talk about who we are, who is the Classification Office. I'll talk about our research, and then we'll head into algorithms, what rangatahi told us about what they understand and their experiences, the impacts this has on them, and then also what they need from us. So who are the Classification Office and what do we do? So you'll probably know us from giving ratings to movies like R13 or R16. If you've been to a movie and that's had a classification rating on it, then somebody from our office has watched that movie and given it that rating. We work to ensure that New Zealanders engage with media content in a positive way while safeguarding them from harm. So we can classify anything that comes under the definition of a publication. So at the bottom of that graph, you can see there's films, series, streaming services, and games. So that's our commercial and entertainment side of our work. We classify those things, and we actually oversee streaming services such as Netflix and Disney Plus to self-rate their own content and give it the New Zealand classification ratings, because in 2021, the law changed that required them to show New Zealand classification ratings rather than their own. We actually have an in-house gamer who plays games all day and classifies those. So if there's a physical game that comes into New Zealand, that will be classified by us. And when we speak to Rangatahi, they all want his job. As well as the entertainment work that we do, we also do have a forensic function. And this is, we are sent publications from police, from customs, from the Department of Internal Affairs to classify. And most commonly, this is the really awful stuff. So this is child sexual abuse material and content that promotes terrorism and violent extremism material as well. So that's a big part of the work that we do, because as an organisation, we are the only place that publications can come to be classified as objectionable, which means that they are banned, illegal to have or share or show anybody else in New Zealand. So somebody in our office has to look at that publication and make that classification decision. And finally, and where I sit in the organisation, is research, education and outreach. So we do a range of research to support our mahi, to support the way we classify, and also we look at things that we think are important to New Zealanders. And then we have the education and outreach arm, which is getting that research and the mahi that we do off the shelf and into the hands of those who need it. And that's through person-to-person presentations, workshops, webinars like this, but then also creating resources to help support parents and whānau and educators and other people in the community. So everything that we do at the Classification Office is set out in the Films Videos Publication Act of 1993. As you can see by that date, it was pre-internet or internet in its infancy, and there are gaps within it. But for films and shows, and generally, it works pretty well. The aim of this law is to limit the availability of potentially harmful media content. And everything that we do in our office is written into this piece of legislation. It outlines the powers and functions of the office, and it says what can be classified and the criteria that we use when we classify something, as well as the penalties for breaking the law. So you can see from that list, there's films, videos. We can classify things, internet content that appears on X or TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, for example, but we don't regulate the social media platforms themselves. And publications can also include books and magazines, and actually anything with text on it. So it could be a pamphlet or a billboard. We even classified a camper van once. So this law impacts New Zealanders' right to the freedom of expression. When we make the decision to classify something, it means that part of the population aren't able to watch or see that publication or share it. So this impacts our right to freedom of expression. So that's the right to access things like movies, games, books, and online content. And we're really mindful of this, and we're always holding both protection from harm and also the right to freedom of expression in our minds when we're making a classification decision. And so, for example, if we were looking at a film and we were really on the fence as to whether it was an R13 or an R16, we would go for that lower classification so that more people were able to watch it, so there was less of an impact on freedom of expression. So as I said at the beginning, we also conduct research, and we conduct research to help us to understand how New Zealanders think, feel and act towards certain things. And some of these things don't technically sit within what we classify, but we think that they are important to New Zealanders. Because of the fact that when we classify something, freedom of expression is impacted the most of our rangatahi. So we like to put them at the centre of what we do because our decisions impact them the most. One thing I love about my job is that we're not a bunch of adults sitting around a table talking about what we think young people need. We actually go and speak with the rangatahi to hear what their experience is, what their concerns are, and what they say they need from us before giving out any advice. So as you can see from the research beginning in 2017, a lot of it is youth focused. So the young New Zealanders viewing sexual violence, that was on films and shows. And then that led into, as I mentioned before, the 3-part youth focused research project into young people's experiences of online pornography. We then did in 2021, the Edge of the Infodemic, which was challenging misinformation in Aotearoa. We were asking New Zealanders about misinformation, whether they were concerned about it and whether they thought something should be done about it. Then in 2022, what we're watching, this research asked people around the country what were they watching and what concerns they had. And then most recently, in 2024, we released 2 pieces of research. One was a literature review into links between online misogyny and violent extremism. So post-March 15, we started receiving a lot of publications that promoted violent extremism, including manifestos. And from those publications, we saw that there was a link between online misogyny and violent extremism. And we wanted to know whether this was something that was happening internationally. So we started this literature review, conducted this literature review last year. And we've got a resource on the website. It's an online resource which you can delve in and out of because it's quite a dense resource, the literature review. And I think that for educators, it might be really interesting to go and have a wee play with that. You can jump into different topics such as incels or sextortion, deep fakes, things that might be of interest to teachers talking with young people, especially if you've just seen the adolescents Netflix show. There might be conversations about incels that might be happening across the school in the classrooms, and there's lots of information in there. So highly recommend you go and have a look at that. And finally, also released last year in partnership with NetSafe, digital reflections. Now, this research aimed to help us understand the complex online experiences influencing the mental and emotional well-being of rangatahi in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And this was modelled on the Growing Up with Porn research, and we interviewed over 50 young people talking about these experiences. So these were long-form interviews and gave us lots and lots of really rich information from rangatahi. And today we're going to be talking about both the digital reflections and a youth report, which is yet to be released, will be released next month. So you're having a sneak peek into that, because both of these we spoke with rangatahi, and in both conversations, algorithms came up quite a lot. So I thought I would share with you what their experiences were from both of these pieces of work that we've done in the office. So first of all, the digital reflections, the body image research, as I said, it was over 50 conversations with rangatahi, and some of those were in clinical care. Social media and online content has significant influence on young people's lives and their self-perception. That's what we found from this research and how they see themselves. So we thought it was really important to speak with rangatahi in this space. We had lots of rich conversations. Unlike pornography, it was a much broader scope. It's harder to define body image. So the conversations were extremely rich and diverse. We have released the initial report, but we are also looking at releasing more information, more parts of the report as we go further throughout the year. So it's all on our website. So if you're interested, have a look at those. And then the youth report, which is to be released next month. We spoke with Rangatahi about extremely harmful content. Now, this is referred specifically to videos, images, texts, or other material people see online that could be classified as objectionable. And objectionable means that it's banned or illegal in New Zealand. And we did this because in our research from 2022 and other information we've gained from 2022 research, we found that young people aged 16 and 17 stated that they'd encountered content promoting harmful behaviours. And we also had other information coming through the office that thought that this might be true. So the purpose of this project was to ensure that young people and also adults who support them are equipped with the knowledge and skills to recognise and respond to extremely harmful content. So this wasn't research, this was facilitated conversations that we had throughout the country with the aim of creating resources for rangatahi themselves and also for parents and whānau and educators. So we're in the process of getting that report released next month, and alongside that report will be a range of resources available. First up for parents, but then as we go throughout the year, we're looking at creating resources for rangatahi and also for educators as well. Now, because this wasn't research, we don't have systemic data on young people's exposure to extremely harmful and illegal content. However, we do know that some young people have been exposed to this content, and this doesn't appear to be an uncommon experience. So algorithms. Algorithms are designed to maximize engagement and keep users engaged by recommending content that aligns with their interests. You go onto a social media platform, you enter your demographics, and content starts being shown to you through your news feed that you might be interested in based on that. And if you engage with it, you like it or comment on it or even hover or pause for a second too long, it will keep giving you that content to try and keep you engaged. What Rangatahi told us was that they engage with social media in the same way that adults do. They want to make and maintain social connections, they want to access entertainment, they want to stay informed, they want to explore their interests and express themselves. And this is a little bit more about what they told us about where they're looking. So the platforms that they talked about engaging with, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, they even spoke about Pinterest. Apparently Pinterest is having a bit of a resurgence with magazines and mood boards, as that's the way it's been used. And then messenger apps, WhatsApp and Discord. And with these messenger apps, they talked about the fact that these were often large groups of people that they didn't know, and it was based on interest. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Discord, it was created in 2015 as a way for gamers to communicate during or outside games to coordinate gaming. And they have text chats and forum links. They can pose a question, there's voice chat or video chat, there's live stream. And it's broken up into servers where people can communicate over a specific topic or friend group or school system, for example. Now, many of the servers are private and need an invitation, but some are discoverable if they have over 1,000 members. Now, both WhatsApp and Discord are not algorithms. They don't use algorithms, so they won't be spoken about in this webinar. As I said to start with, putting rangatahi at the centre of our mahi is really important to us. So I have used from here on in lots of quotes from rangatahi, and I would highly recommend that you do the same in your classroom. So please take as many quotes from this webinar or from the research that we have on our website to use with your rangatahi. I think it's really a really powerful way to springboard the conversation, to get the conversation going, but also to help them to think critically about their experiences by hearing from others. And it also makes it not solely about them, so it's often easier to talk about. So this young man said, you look at one thing, or you look at one picture, or search one thing up, and then your whole algorithm will have something to do with dieting and fashion and all that stuff. So that was a 17-year-old New Zealand male from the body image research. So what they told us that they understood that algorithms are at play. They talked about their experience being individualized, that even though it might be similar to their peers, it wasn't completely similar. It depended on what they were clicking on, for example. They told us that young people find both helpful and harmful online content. And some of them talked about how algorithms can make it hard to get positive and reliable information. And they talked about it being difficult to curate their feed. So once they started on the platform, it was hard to kind of change the feed to show exactly what they wanted to see, which was interesting. Here's some more quotes. For the most part, people know what an algorithm is. Being engaging also could be really shocking, and then you could spiral into maybe harmful or more extreme content. I know that the design of them is to keep the users on the app and keep them engaged. Videos go viral because everyone's watching them. Creators can manipulate the words a bit. Diet culture can be, here's what I eat in a day. So it's interesting that they knew that the algorithm was at play, but also that those who are monetizing from the algorithm, the influencers, for example, also knew this and they were using it to their advantage. It pays attention to what you're interacting with and gives you more the stuff that you like. If you actively engage with content, you keep going to see it, even if your engagement isn't positive. And the quote that I thought was most powerful in yellow is, you look at it for a little too long and then it will like keep giving you more and more videos. If I'm looking at something and I'm like, oh, this is wrong, but if I watch it anyway, then I'll get more and more videos like that. So that's the annoying thing. So just this sense of, even though they didn't mean to, or maybe they weren't actually that into what they were looking at, maybe they were just curious, they're going to start getting more and more of that content. If you're on social media, just scrolling, and then it comes up and you weren't searching for it and it's really bad, that stays with you. And this is a young person from the youth project, and there was lots of this language that stays with you, sticking with you. You can't get it out of your head. So they're seeing this content coming up, something that they're not even looking for, and they can't get that image out of their head. Now, I found the language really interesting. And so I've just collated here a range of quotes from the Rangatahi. The size of them doesn't mean anything. It was just something to make it look nice. But I just thought this language, this being not conscious, being fed things, you sense spiraling, you're probably about 1% in control of the hundreds of thousands of what you see. You get stuck in a wormhole, you get sucked into the more, it sends you down pipelines, then it keeps you feeling really trapped, daunting to escape from. I just found this language really interesting. It just shows the lack of control they think they have. And they know that the algorithm is part of the platform. And if they want to engage with that platform, which they do for the variety of reasons I spoke about before, then they just have to deal with it. They don't have any choice. This is just all part of that experience, and they don't feel they've got any real control about what they're viewing. So this leads me to talk about the impacts. And this young person said, well, I think children might be impacted by it because they'll be less aware. Teens will have learned that a lot of stuff is fake and you shouldn't listen to it, whereas younger people will be less aware of that and they'll believe more, and so it can impact them more. That was a clinical patient and the participant in the body image research. And a lot of them talked about that, about the fact that when they were younger, it had a bigger impact on them because they were unable to critically think about what they were seeing. And here's a list of more impacts. So individual had experienced the impacts differently depending on their age, also depending on their temperament as to whether they were, how resilient they were or not, and then their support networks. So for example, with body image, if there was a lot of body positivity happening at home, then they were less likely to be impacted in the same way as one of their peers, but it was all very individualized. They talked about poor mental health, that it could change how you think and feel. And as I said before, they talked about how content is hard to forget and it sticks in your head. Some of them talked about how younger children might copy what they see. And from a classification lens, we also look for what we call dangerous imitable behavior when we're making a classification. So if someone's going to copy it and harm themselves or others, then that's what we would consider in our classification as well. Some also described how social media algorithms and shared content can contribute to seeking harmful material because it's designed to keep you engaged with attention-grabbing material. Young people might be curious and then they might start to seek out similar content when it shows up in their feed, even though they weren't initially seeking it out. So here's some quotes about the impacts. So algorithms can change someone's mindset. You don't forget those kinds of things. That gore, it stays with you for a while. I probably wouldn't feel comfortable telling my mother because she would just use it as an excuse to put more restrictions on. And this came up a lot. They're really worried that if they talk with someone about it, the answer is going to be, well, let's get you off social media and maybe don't have a phone anymore. And they're very concerned about that. It's not really that good for their mental health. Young people don't realize the effect it has on them. You're being drawn to things you don't normally see, and that can be quite serious, and you're quite curious because they're young people and that, it's very common for them to be curious. And finally, in yellow, it'll stick with you more if society that you're in deems it taboo to talk about. And from talking with young people, lots of young people weren't having productive or positive conversations that they felt that they needed to be having about this content. Again, please feel free to steal any quotes and use them in your classrooms. I think it's a really powerful tool. So how did Rangatahi respond? Well, this young woman said that someone made a fake account on TikTok of my mum with a photo of us doing a dance, and it's really embarrassing. We've reported it about 20 times and it's still up, so it doesn't work. So she's obviously traumatized that she's been seen with her mother dancing and is very, very embarrassed. But this is a reflection of how young people feel about how to respond to these algorithms and this content that they don't want to see. They know that they have options. They know that they can click the not interested button, or they can block content or report it. Some of them talked about blocking seeming like a step too far. It was a bit extreme to block something. So often they would just scroll. They don't think the options, as this young woman says here, are very effective. And they're not talking to adults for fear of what they deem an overreaction because they don't want to have their devices taken away. So basically, they're just dealing with this content themselves. They want to use the social media platform, so they're just scrolling through and trying to, just avoid the content as best they can. So what they wanted, someone to talk to about it, someone who can listen and offer advice if it's asked for. There was kind of a lot of this. Please don't jump into action. Please just listen to me before you take action and see what I really need. And then with regards to education, one young person said maybe even as early as kindergarten, it should have started being talked about. So ultimately, they don't want us to panic. They want more understanding and supportive dialogue. They want non-judgmental conversations rather than solutions. Like I said, they don't want us to leap into action. They want us to listen. They want us to be empathetic and validate and be less critical. Some young people talked about how social media and the internet gets blamed for all their problems by their parents. They want us to normalize conversations and for adults to be willing to learn. There's definitely a generational divide with regards to technology and what young people perceive as being what adults know and what they're experts at. So being willing to learn and listen was really important to them. And they wanted better educational resources and support from a younger age at school. Now, what they wanted was very similar to things that came up in earlier research, like our pornography research, for example. So how we talk about things and what to talk about was very similar from the research we completed in 2018 to the research that we completed last year and this year. So what this means for you, whatever your role, whether it's educator in the classroom or parent at home, I think when we're having these conversations, it's really important to be thinking about what we bring to the conversation before we start the conversation. And the reason I say that is because we want to be as neutral as possible. Young people are reading us all the time. They want to know if there's a right answer. They want to know if they're going to get told off. They want to know how to shut the conversation down as quickly as possible, potentially. So it's really important that we're being as neutral as possible. And to do that, I think we need to look at, think about what our values are, what our beliefs are, and what our judgments and assumptions are with regards to this topic. I get asked by people whether they need to change their values or their beliefs, and the answer is no. You just need to know what they are so that you can come to this conversation as neutral as possible. Because often when we're worried, or scared, that can come across as anger. And in the classroom, I think young people can think that there's a right answer and they'll just give you the answer that they think you want. So when I talk about pornography, even things like asking young people what are the negative impacts of pornography, it would be better to ask just what are the impacts. So with regards to social media algorithms, what are the impacts of social media algorithms? Don't taint it at the beginning with what are the negatives, because they will talk about the negatives overwhelmingly. But if we open it up, it allows them to critically think about both the positives and the negatives, and have more of an open dialogue and have their voices feel like they're being heard. So what can we talk about? We can talk about what algorithms are with Rangatahi and how they shape their online experiences, which is where those quotes would be really useful. How to curate their feed. So how can they create a feed that, a social media feed that makes them feel good, is the things that they really want to see. Personally, I tried to do this the other day. We got a puppy last year, and a Cocker Spaniel puppy. And since we got the puppy and I Googled one thing about Cocker Spaniel puppies, my social media feed was just screeds and screeds of puppies, which is nice, but you get over it after a little while. And I myself tried to curate my feed by putting not interested in, by putting even words in, keywords to try and get rid of them in my feed. And it was actually really difficult. And I'm still receiving some videos of Cocker Spaniel puppies because maybe I'm hovering over them a bit too long. But yeah, I'm still receiving some of that content. So just really thinking about how they can be really purposeful with what they're engaging with, what they're searching up on social media, so that their feeds are looking uh, like how they want them to and in a positive way. Digital literacy and critical thinking, which I'm sure you're all doing, and also talking to them about the importance of talking with an adult if they see something that makes them feel uncomfortable. The majority of the young people we spoke to didn't want to do this because they were worried about the response. But they said if they were going to be listened to and heard and not anyone jump into action straight away, then they didn't want to be dealing with this and what they might be seeing on their own. With regard to the body image, it was interesting. Young people were saying that they didn't want to be a burden, talking about it with their friends, and they didn't want to talk about it with their families. So yeah, I think as adults we need to be starting the conversation, but in a way that there's no shame. It builds trust, and there's no initial knee-jerk reaction. So resources, as I said at the beginning, we are developing resources. We'll release some for parents, but we're also developing some for educators and young people as well. We've got a range of blogs on our website already. That one includes talking about algorithms that's aimed at parents, but it might be good for people to share. But I want to create resources for teachers also, and being experts in this space, I would really love it if you had any ideas as to what might be useful, where the gaps are, so that I can create content that's really meaningful. If anyone wants to collaborate, that would be really great. So please get in touch if that's something that you're interested in, or you have just any ideas, any brainstorming ideas, that would be great. So here's all the information. That's our website, classificationoffice.govt.nz. It's got a range of resources on there. All of the research that I've talked about is on there as well. So you can delve into that. The misogyny literature review is on there as well. So you can have a look at that online resource. And when we release the youth report, that's where that will go to, along with the resources as well. And if you did want to get in touch with me, my email's at the bottom, just kate@classificationoffice.govt.nz.
Ah, that was fabulous, Kate. And I know we've got a brilliant question that's just come in. How do we monitor the students' children's activity online without making them feel like they're being watched, monitored? Is it okay to tell them their devices are being monitored?
I think it's important to tell them that the devices are being monitored. I think an open dialogue as to why you think that's important is a good place to start. I don't think looking at devices without them knowing is a very good place. It doesn't really build trust. And for me, building trust and having your rangatahi know that they can come to you is really important. I talk to people with young children, and I think starting young makes it a lot easier, because then that sets that boundary and that expectation that I know what's happening online, because it's my job to keep you safe.
Very cool. I mean, I know this is huge, and we have a couple of questions from Claire, who's just popped on. So,
Hi, Kate. That was fascinating, actually, having teenagers myself and been in the classroom. Two questions came to mind while you were talking. The first one, it seems like there's a bit of a spotlight, social media and online behaviour with the Netflix releasing of adolescence, which freaks me out. Do you think this will actually have a positive impact on people?
I think anybody talking about it, I think is a really positive thing. I think having conversations with our kids about media like adolescence is a super positive thing to do. It engages with them. We can ask them questions about their experience, how they think and feel, and it just starts that real open dialogue. I think, yeah, I think it's great.
What the age rating is on that? Like, is that something worth watching with your own children at home?
I think it's R13, I think.
Okay.
But so yes, I definitely think that watching it with your teenager is a great place to do that. Yeah.
Okay. My next question was around the social media ban that they had in Australia. And do you think that would be helpful here or something, and potentially something that we would do here?
Because we are not part of government, we operate at arm's length from government. That's a decision for the government of the time. That's not something we just work under the legislation.
Do you think it would be a positive
It'll
step
be very
forward?
interesting to see how it plays out in
Mm.
Australia. I definitely think having younger children on social media can be harmful. Yeah.
Because it's interesting speaking to my own kids and kids at school, they're like, well, you just put in a different birth date.
Mm.
So you just lie about your age. And it's like, but that has such a big knock on effect. Like if you say you're 16 and your targeted adverts are for 16-year-olds, and then when you are 16, it thinks that you're 20, and then that targeted adverting is drinking and all these different things. Not that they're aware of any of those things. They're just like, well, I'll just put in a different
Yeah.
birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So age verification would be a useful tool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know the conversation about Australia kind of brings me into some of the social media self-defense classes that they're running. And I liked what you were saying about starting with the positives and not heading straight to the negatives. What are your kind of views on like the self-defense approach?
I'm not
I'm
aware
gonna
of itself. Please
um
tell me.
here, I'm going to put a link, please, if that can go to all attendees. Um, and I will just share screen quickly. It is not something I know a lot about. It is something that I found as a result of listening to you talking. So the e-safety commissioner in Australia is running social media self-defense training. And they're doing this by offering um, specific groups, I think, free customized sessions. So
Yeah, I think that looks great. I think that eSafety is a really excellent organization. That the work that they do, yeah, I really rate it. So I would imagine that this, any sort of education around this is a really positive thing.
okay, cool. And I know there is some parallel research that's come out about the Australian context very recently. We haven't let our attendees today know that, have we? That this is almost a sneak preview because this research is coming out formally.
Yes,
Um,
April, so next month, the youth
yeah,
report. Yeah.
yeah, and the University of Sydney are looking at social media use and safety concerns. So that parallel research might be helpful if we put them together
Mm.
and look at what are the patterns happening across borders, across the Tasman.
Yeah, and I think any sort of statistics or research is really great as a conversation starter with young people. This is what's happening. This is what stats are saying. Is that similar to what, you and your peer group are experiencing, or is it different? Or another really powerful way to talk with young people is to ask them about their younger selves, or what would you say to a 12-year-old about this, or your young brother or sister? Just because it puts them in that caregiver role, and they're really good at being able to tell you what a younger person than themselves needs, because they're fine, obviously. But that's a really powerful way to make it not about them, but they're still critically thinking about the topic. We find that to be a really great tool to use.
Cool. Well, I mean, it looks, Claire, did you have any more questions or?
I've probably actually got tons and tons of questions, but no, nothing to ask right now though. Thank you, Kate. Yeah, I just find this interesting with to go back to the adolescence thing because it's just everywhere. It's everything that I'm seeing, and obviously I've clicked on something and watched something, and now it's sending me all the things. But it's just interesting that it's in the spotlight and everyone's talking about it now.
Yeah,
So I
and
do.
I think your point of you've clicked on something and now lots of it's coming up. I'd share that with your kids. I'd be
Mm,
saying, "Hey, all your class, hey, I clicked on this, and now I'm getting all this stuff about it," and they'll be like, "Yeah, we know that's how it works." But then you get them to teach you about, and they'll start talking about their own experiences. Well, what do you do? How do I stop this? How do I get, how do I change it? And then so then we'll start the conversation as well.
okay, cool. Thank you. It'd be better than having cat videos,
Yeah.
which I also get. Thanks, Kate.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, it looks like your presentation was so fantastic that you've answered everybody's immediate questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to head into our inviting of feedback. We are all in education, so please feed forward any kind of feeding. It's very, very, very helpful because we know how to change, improve, give you more. And as Kate shared before, she's also very happy for you to share your ideas with her. So please do go to go.tens.org.nz/social-algorithm or scan the QR code here and give us all of your feedback. We love it. Here's where I'm trying to do the teacher thing and wait for a couple of seconds. It's very difficult though. Okay, I've managed to pause, but not a very long time at all. It was also to see if there would be any burning questions that arose in the closing moments. But what we'll do is we'll let you know next Wednesday webinar on Wednesday, the 7th of May. And that's just been rearranged a little bit so we don't take out any chunks from your school holidays. Is on mahinga kai education and sustainability with the lovely Deborah Davies, aka Te Pora. So looking forward to seeing you then. Let's I'm going to do it again. Claire, if you could put me in, we could both. I'm sign language applauding here, and that was just fantastic. Kate, thoroughly enjoyed it. And I probably will be one of the many who's emailing you.
Please do.
Cool. Do you have any closing words? Is there any final pithy anything that you want to go out on? Or
I just think it's important to put rangatahi at the centre of what we do, and I know as educators that's what we do. And I'm really hopeful that this research and projects we do in the office can help support that. And I really admire all the work that you do in your classrooms with your rangatahi.
oh, I'm so glad I asked. Okay. Now we know our work is not finished, but our webinar is finished. So he karakia whakamutunga. Kia mātou katoa, kua mutu mātou ia mātou mahi, ia mātou kaupapa hoki. Arahina mātou, kia kawe mātou ia mātou haipapa. Kia whakatapua mātou ki ngā kaupapa me ngā mea e whakapono. Manaaki tia mai mātou.